Hey guys, it's Henry, and in today's video we're going to be talking about why most online coaches AI prompts suck, what you can do about it, and how you can get a 300% performance improvement by maximizing your ability to use prompts effectively. So first and foremost, let's look at some of the key reasons why this might be. So essentially we've got two different types of prompt engineering. We've got conversational prompting and we've got single shot prompting. Now, most people use conversational prompting in day-to-day life using things like ChatGPT in a kind of give and take style. So you might put a prompt in and you can refine it again and again, and it will be pretty forgiving. It's, it feels quite easy to use. It's very flexible in its responses. If it isn't quite right, you can change it again really quickly. That makes it suitable for personal use and iterative interactions that get better over time. And that's really helpful if you're just interacting with it on a day-to-day basis. You need to maybe improve it with a few attempts. And it doesn't really matter too much if the first attempt isn't absolutely spot on. Single shot, on the other hand, is really AI automation focused. It's designed for efficiency and it requires prompts that are precise and there cannot be any follow-up, essentially. It has to be right the very first time. Now, this is the case if, for example, we're going to look at in a second, if you've got an email inbox manager agent, for example, where it classifies emails, it responds to inbound inquiries from potential leads, then it has to be right every single time. Otherwise, it's going to make big mistakes. It might not follow up to people who need to be followed up. So it's important to get that right every single time. So what we're going to be looking at is what's called single shot prompting today, not so much conversational prompting, although the same principles do apply. So in conversational styles, obviously we said we can be going back and forth. If we look at an example of an AI automation flow from Zapier here, this is what's called an inbox filter automation. When an email comes into the inbox here, there's an AI step, which is where it's going to decide which inbox label needs to be identified and assigned to that email. And then further down here, we've also got whether a reply is required or not. So in conversational prompting, when you're just interacting with the interface of a chatbot, you can be fairly forgiving. It doesn't really matter if it's not right every single time. As you can see in this case, it's got to be right every single time, and it's where it's even more important that our prompts are really, really good. Otherwise, it's going to make big mistakes and not going to return what you need. And that could be pretty catastrophic if you aren't responding to, for example, potential clients, or a very important message comes in that isn't getting a response straight away. So super, super important when we're doing single shot prompts that we're getting it absolutely spot on. So why the skill set matters for coaches in particular. Now, if you can't prompt correctly, there's a few things. Firstly, you can't build AI client onboarding systems, which can obviously take information, give them specific tasks to do in the first 24 hours, maybe an AI chatbot that they're going to interact with instantly so they can get the information they need and get up to speed really quickly. You can't create automated content generators that return exactly what you want. Otherwise, it's just going to return the incorrect stuff and you may as well just be doing it yourself in the first place. You can't build AI coaching assistants. So if you've got perhaps an AI coaching assistant that can handle client inquiries 24/7, so even whilst you're asleep, you've got a client on the other side of the world and they can interact with that and get your knowledge base. But you can't do that unless you've got really good prompt engineering. You can't scale your coaching business with AI either, because obviously a huge part of it is telling the AI exactly what you want from each individual prompt. So it's really important that we can get this right and we can learn this skill as online coaches. Now, the stuck coach, as I call them, has got a bag of prompt templates they just kind of cherry pick out and use over and over again. They get stuck when something doesn't quite work. They use more expensive AI models to compensate by just basically using more powerful versions that hopefully solve the problems. They create pretty slow and very expensive systems. Some of the systems I'm going to talk about are very fast and very efficient and not very costly. Other ones are more expensive and more powerful, but also can be more expensive because of that. And can take a little bit longer. You can also struggle to create real value just because you're not getting the responses that you really need, and you can give up on it and blame the tools because you think, well, this isn't really working, AI doesn't really make quality content and I'm actually producing poor quality stuff. It's just not, it's not my fault, it's the AI's fault. Well, as I'm going to show you, the prompt engineering that we can put into it can make a huge, huge difference. The smart coach, on the other hand, has got a toolkit of prompt components based on research. So we're going to look at some of the research and what it shows makes a big impact to the responses from different prompts. They approach problems like an engineer, use the cheapest models, which creates lightning fast and affordable systems, actually makes money because clients love the results, and you can use experts who can do it for them faster. So for example, I specialize in AI automation for online coaches. So please reach out if you've got any kind of questions or you want to find out how I can support you with installing some systems for you. You shouldn't have to learn it all yourself. Now there's 6 kind of core components to a formula. Now you might have just in the past just put, please design this for me, like a single sentence. Well, this is to highlight the fact that there's actually 6 elements you need to include, and the length of the prompt is going to be significantly longer, but it will mean significantly better results. So first of all, we need to have a role. We need to provide a role to the AI so it knows who it is and what it's trying to achieve in terms of its expertise. So I'll give you some examples of this, but in essence, you could say, you're a world-class copywriter known for creating really powerful copy that converts, would be an example of a role. You've given it both the role and it's some traits and the like as well. And as I'll show you in a second, it's going to really what's called hype up the model and improve its responses. Step 2, the task. You want to clarify exactly what you want it to do. Pretty simple. That's what most people tend to do. It's just the task. Step 3, emotion prompting. This adds the importance of the task for the AI. And it's going to show you how important this is in a second. Context, that defines your personal context, so who you are, what you do. Obviously over time the AI can learn from this and it will provide better responses because it understands exactly your context. It knows that, for example, you're an online coach, you're not a sales consultant for a medical company, for example. And then examples, so specific examples, what's called few shot examples, usually 3 to 5 of what the output should look like exactly, so that if it's happening over and over and again, thousands of times, if you can give it 3 to 5 excellent examples of what you want, then it will perform much, much better. And then finally, notes, which is essentially like a reminder, and it avoids what's called the lost in the middle effect, where in the middle of some of these prompts, particularly when you've got long examples or you might have quite a lot of detail in the task here, it's just a reminder of what the most important components are. And it's important that you remind the AI of what the most important things are that it should be doing every single time. Okay, let's dive into each of these different sections. So in our example, we're going to be looking at an inbound client inquiry agent for email. So imagine that you're an online coach and you are getting emails coming to you from potential clients saying, hey, love what you do, found you on social media. How does it work? How do I sign up? Do I book a call, etc.? So that's the example we're going to be using today. Now you saw the screenshot earlier from Zapier of how a workflow could potentially look. Well, this is kind of following up from that, but it's the AI steps which I mentioned where you need to have a really high quality prompt to make sure that every single time the data gets fed through, the input creates the output that you really want. So in terms of role prompting, there's a couple of key things you want to do here, but just to highlight the role prompting performance impact, including a role here can improve accuracy of responses by 10 to 25%. On the lower side for more simple tasks, on the higher end for more complex tasks. And this again is all from research. Now what we want to do here is assign the AI an advantageous role with complementary descriptions. So there's 2 kind of key things here that we want to include in this prompt in this first section. First of all, you want to have a role that's advantageous for the task. So for example, it could be an expert health coach for nutrition assessments. It could be a world-class copywriter for writing landing page copy. It could be a world-class financial advisor for getting kind of insights on how you should manage your money potentially. So you want to give it a really clear task, and then you want to enrich that with traits that highlight how good it is at the task. Again, usually a couple of key traits here is about right. You don't want to be giving it 20 different traits because it can confuse the model, but 2 or 3 key traits would be really advantageous here. Now what this is doing is what's called hyping up the model. So the AI now is going to improve its performance because it's recognizing that the role it's trying to play is of this person, so it needs to adopt the traits of that kind of individual, as opposed to just saying write me this text from this write me the copy for this landing page. It knows it's already a world-class copywriter with some particular traits, so it's going to obviously elevate its performance to those core traits you've identified. Pretty cool. So off the back of that, here's an example. You could say you're an experienced client inquiry assessment specialist who accurately categorizes potential coaching clients based on their fit, readiness, and potential for success. Bearing in mind, this is the email inbox manager agent we're talking about. This is the role we're going to give it. So we've identified the role, that it's an experienced client inquiry assessment specialist, and the traits are accurately categorizes potential clients based on fit, readiness, and potential for success. So it now knows what role that it needs to play before you give it the task. Okay, step 2. This is what's called chain of thought prompting. So you want to basically tell the AI what to do, starting with the verb, being descriptive but brief. Now, this is essentially the task. So what the chain of thought is. So do this, then do this, then do this, then do this. And the order in which you obviously give it that task is going to influence its ability to accurately execute that task as well. In terms of performance, there's a 10% improvement in accuracy for simple problems, a 90% improvement on more complex problems, which is huge. So, 90% is obviously almost a doubling of performance from just giving it a very clear chain of thought that it needs to follow when executing a task. So we'll have a look at that in just a second. So applied to our example here, what we want to do is give it maybe 5 to 10 bullet points of exactly what it should be looking to do, the order in which we want it to do it. So when this email enters the inbox, we know that the role it's playing is of a high-level email inbox manager, which is very accurate. And it now knows it needs to classify the inquiry into different steps. So identifying the primary goal, you're then going to assess the commitment level based on the language used. So whether they're saying, I'm desperate to get started, or I've been thinking about doing this for a few weeks, I'm not quite sure, it can identify the language used. Evaluate the budget readiness indicators. They might say, look, I'm ready to go, I'm ready to invest, or someone who says, not really sure. You may hear this from online coaching clients or potential clients that they've got kind of concerns around the finances. It can identify that component. Check for alignment with the coaching niche. So is it the right kind of person? And then the appropriate category of what that email should be categorized as. So is it basically a notification email, or is it an actual inquiry which requires a response? Okay, awesome stuff. So those are the first two. Number 3, emotion prompting. So you want to have a bulleted list of important notes about task execution here. So what this does is basically it says how important this task is. So some of the research here is shown an 8% increase in simple tasks, 115% on complex tasks, which is massive, 19% more truthful outputs, and 12% more informative outputs just by including this emotion prompting component. So if we included, say, 5 to 10 bullet points in the task, but we also give it this as within terms of the task detail of an emotion prompt saying it's really important we get this right because our business reputation relies upon your ability to respond in an informative and accurate and professional way, that has been shown to improve the performance of the model. Now, to give it a quick example of this, we could say that, again, within this second step here, within the task section, emotion prompting, that this task is critical to success of our coaching business. High priority means a clear goal and budget indicators and a good fit. Needs follow-up means interested but needs nurturing. Not a fit would be the wrong niche, unrealistic expectations. And then finally, your accuracy directly impacts our ability to serve clients well. So we're giving it more clear indicators of exactly what the model needs to do, but we're also giving it clear indications of how important it is that this task gets done right. And as we've seen already, if it is a complex task, which email inbox classification may not necessarily be that complex, but can on complex tasks increase performance by 115%, which is just night and day in terms of the ability of it to perform well. So really, really important that not only are we including the task details, but we're also including this emotion prompt component as well. Okay, context in the prompt engineering. So basically this is what's the context now in which we're operating. So it knows its own role, but it also needs to know your context. And this is where this bit comes in. So you need to give the AI a better understanding of the environment that it's operating in. So this is context that's going to basically give them relevance as to, I'm an online coach, or I'm a sales director, or I'm a consultant, or whatever. Now, in this case, obviously, we're talking about online coaching. So we're going to give it a clear indication of what that means for us, not just that you're an online coach, but in depth, what does your business do? So in this made up online coaching business, we're saying our online coaching business specializes in helping busy professionals achieve their fitness goals through sustainable habit change. We receive inquiries mainly from our website, social media, and referrals. Your role in classifying these inquiries is essential for our client success team to prioritize their outreach and respond to the right people quickly. By accurately identifying the best fit clients, you directly contribute to the growth and impact of our coaching practice. So that's the level of depth that the context component should be. Really rich detail, very clear what the business does, very clear what the kind of thought or chain of thought prompting is supporting, so what the flow of workflow looks like, and ultimately how this contributes, again, to the performance of the overall business. So then we've got examples. So far we've given it the role, we've given it the chain of thought prompting, we've given it the emotion prompting so it knows what it's doing, we've given it the context so it knows how it's operating. We now need to give it examples of what the ideal output should look like. So we know the inputs from the task and the context. We now need to give it examples of really effective output so it knows to create a pattern of responses. Now, what's been shown from the research, if you go from 0 to 1, if you just give it one example, you can increase the quality and accuracy of responses by 35%. Pretty important when we're doing email classification, because if it doesn't recognize the right email or it misclassifies it because it hasn't got something to refer to, that's kind of our fault. Like, we should make sure it's got something to refer to. So, I'm going to give you some examples in a second, but it could be that you've had an email inquiry, and then because it hasn't got an example of that, it doesn't recognize it as an inquiry yet. So what we want to do is give it at least one, but ideally 3 to 5 examples is going to give you the most benefit here. So ideally that sort of range, 3 to 5 good quality examples. So here's how we could do it. That the AI learns format and structure more than content. So what actually matters more in terms of our prompts is not so much that the exact content is accurate, but actually that the formatting and the structuring of how we give it our prompt is what matters more, that it knows how to operate. It knows the guidelines within which it's operating and where the guardrails are to stop it from getting way off track. So even incorrect labels can improve performance because it is ultimately learning how to respond. It's not just, it's not just responding to, okay, I know roughly what the task is. It's knowing exactly, okay, I understand my role and what the task is and the context. I also know exactly what a previous example should look like so that I've got something to refer to. And that's a really key part to remember. So this is how we could do it. Let's say we want to have this email inbox classification system. In example 1, they're a 35-year-old executive working 60 hours a week. Well, we know we work with high-performing corporate clients, and they've tried every diet, nothing sticks. I'm ready to invest and finally get healthy. What's your pricing? Well, that would be a high priority lead because all those signals are they're the right fit, the right time, and they've got the money to invest. It's a high priority. Example number 2 would be, do you offer a free trial? I want to see if this works before I pay anything. Well, that could need a follow-up, but it doesn't really sound like they're ready to actually invest. And then number 3 is, I need to lose £50 in 2 months for a wedding. Can you guarantee results? Not a good fit because they are not quite the right fit for what we're looking to achieve in terms of niche. They sound a little bit vague in terms of their commitment, like, can you guarantee results? Well, as we know, what we want to say is that no, you can't guarantee results because they need to do the work. So that wouldn't necessarily be a good fit for this coaching business that we're talking about. Finally, then, notes and the focus at the end. This is essentially your last chance to remind the AI of key points and add any final tweaks. So we could have, for example, a few kind of key summary points here to stop it misremembering key details from the middle, which I'll talk about in a second. So clarity matters. I want to make sure it's really clear what it should be doing now. Quick reminders of any key details, avoiding drift, and organising the notes. So just making sure at the end you've got a nice, neat summary of a couple of key details that needs to remember. In this case, it could be, please always remember to respond to high priority leads, as a priority, or please make sure you accurately classify each email based on the previous task and structure examples I've already given you. So the final piece here is what's called the loss in the middle research, which essentially shows that AI performs best when information's at the beginning or the end. So in other words, because we've given it the role, it's going to latch onto that quite strongly. And towards the end, we've obviously given it previous examples to refer to, so it's going to look at that. If we don't, at the very end here, in the notes section, refer it back to some of the key details in the middle around the context, the emotion prompting, then performance is going to significantly drop because it can sometimes get lost in this middle of the prompt, particularly if it's quite a long prompt for a more complex task. Instructions at the start and end are followed more reliably, So towards the end, you just want to have a couple of keynotes that remind it of the most important elements of this task so that it doesn't get sidelined or off track. Now, something just to kind of say at this stage is that you can, although this is a single shot prompt, you can obviously, before publishing it, making an automation live, you can trial it with a few emails to see if it classifies it and responds correctly. If it doesn't, you can go back to the prompt and edit it. So it's not, one and done. You can edit it until it's ready, but once it's live, obviously it has one shot to get it correct. So want to make sure that a prompt is absolutely as good as possible. And the final bit, seems like the wrapper, which goes around this, is what's called markdown formatting, and this is essential for creating it as structured and readable for AI, as well as creating the outputs in the same kind of way with headings, bold, italics in the right way. And by using this, essentially we can make the whole prompt output look a lot neater and be structured in exactly the right way. So here's an example of how it would look, minus all the detail that we've already added into this prompt. A hashtag, for example, along role, task, specifics, context, examples, and notes means that it's going to recognize that as a heading, and it's going to spit out the output with clear headings to make the output more readable, more user-friendly, and overall just more useful. So if we now go before and after, the before scenario, should move myself out of the way of that, is that we'd probably put something like this: classify the following inquiry into high priority, needs follow-up, or a not fit category. That's sometimes the extent to which we might have prompted the model. We've seen now how much depth you can go into with the prompt and how much quality we can get better. So that would give us our baseline response. Probably wouldn't be very good. On the second step though, once we've added in the full prompt, which looks like this, and obviously you can't see the full prompt here because it's significantly wordy, but I've added it all into this box here just so you can see how much text goes in, so you can see how much more depth the AI has got to go into. What we've got then is the role at the top here. We've just put exactly what the role is, the task with 5 bullet points, which we've already explained, the inquiry specifically. Now if you're using something like Zapier, you would obviously include in this section here the actual link to the email that's come through. So in the steps, you'd have step 1, the Gmail inquiry comes in, and then obviously the AI can then read that email. That's where it would be referring to it, just here. The specifics, all the key bits it needs to know, the context in which you're working, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 examples of emails with whether it's a high priority, not priority, or a follow-up. And then finally the notes at the end, where we've just said provide only the classification label in your response. That's quite a key one. Don't include an explanation or commentary on why, and just a couple of key reminders. So never include personal information, focus on fit and readiness indicators, not demographics or personal details. So you're just reminding it again to avoid this lost in the middle effect, that it is going to be reminded essentially of what those key details are for this prompt. So overall, it's a 300% improvement in efficiency and responses just by incorporating better techniques into your prompt engineering with way more detail. So if you're an online coach and you want to improve your ability to use AI automation, and this is so important, because if you're not improving the quality of the prompts, then you're going to be getting poor quality outputs, and you're just going to think that the AI is rubbish and it's not got a good use case for your business, and that's just not the case. There are loads of really good use cases, and some of these really key ones are AI lead generation, as we've just shown. So the ability to recognize and classify leads as either they need a response, that they're a good fit, they're not a good fit, and what to do. You can signpost them to resources if they're not a good fit. We can book them into a call or send them to a landing page if they are. So super powerful, and that can work around the clock as well. Number 2, automated content generation. So again, if you've got the right prompt, it can generate really high quality content for you, particularly using things like Claude for content generation in text format for blogs, emails, LinkedIn posts, or long form repurposing. So if you've made a YouTube video, it can take a transcript and extract that and put it into different formats again. But the prompt is what's going to be the key bit there. Or AI coaching assistance, which is obviously where you could have things like your own knowledge base put into a custom GPT, and then your coaches could access that and provide yourself with a lot more scale around your coaching hours. Quite a few sort of practical tips to finish up then. First of all, use cost-effective models. Now, you don't have to use the most powerful one all the time because they use on usage basis, particularly with automation software. So what you don't want to do is use the most expensive model because one, it costs more, and two, sometimes because they're more powerful, they can actually be a little bit slower, even if the responses can sometimes be better. So what you want is basically quite lightweight, fast, and very cheap models wherever possible, because that obviously saves you money and it makes it as lightweight and as fast as possible. So don't always think that the higher the model, or the higher the spec of the model, or the most latest model is always going to be the best thing for you. You always want to see cost-effective, fast models. Temperature adjustment on the responses. You might just need to tweak settings. Now, temperature is essentially variation of response. So the higher the temperature, the higher the variation of the response. What you want to see is a low temperature to basically get the similar kind of output every single time. That's massively important for something where you don't want variation, like an email inbox manager. Maybe for a more creative response, if you're trying to generate interesting ideas, or you've got something that spits out, text-based responses every single week, then maybe a little bit of variation can be helpful. But for something where you want to classify and respond in the same way every single time, you want to bring that temperature settings down. And then finally, balancing length. So optimizing the prompt length for clarity and focus. We don't want it to be absolutely massive so that it's kind of too complex in some ways. The one we've just shown you there is pretty standard for an AI automation prompt, but just try to make sure you're not making it so long that it is too complex. So trying to balance that kind of length with clarity and focus overall. Now, if you are interested in this and you're a coach who wants to master prompting, then just think about how you can put this into practice with different ways. So this is a great opportunity now for you to scale your business by thinking about how can I input a really high quality prompt into my content generation automation, or how can I use this to put a really high quality prompt into my lead generation system or my client check-in system. There's loads of applications, and would be really, really keen to chat to you if you think you've got a use case there where you're not really sure about, and there might be an opportunity for me to help you with that as well. So if you want to either reach out and book a call with me, just a real chilled discovery call to chat about where you're at with the business and what you would like to achieve with it through AI automation, would love to help, and you can book a call down below. If not, you can subscribe to my email list to get weekly insights to enhance your online coaching business as well, and the link down below to join the email list, where you're going to get 14 different ways in 14 days to automate your business and improve your efficiency, save yourself 5 to 10 hours every single week. So hope that's been useful. Great to chat, guys, and I will see you very soon.